Well, hello everyone. Today I'm doing interviews with my ALT friends. So my name is Andrew Saito. I'm from Whistler, Canada. I've been on the JET program for 10 months and I teach primarily at elementary schools.
And my name is Eric Provost and I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And I teach at both junior high schools and elementary schools. And I've also been here for 10 months.
My name is Rolly Layson. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I teach in a junior high school as well as 3 elementary schools, and I've also been in Japan for about 10 months.
So if you're an applicant to the JET program, or if you're thinking about making that move to come to Japan, I hope these interviews help to answer some of the questions or doubts you may have about making that decision to come. So let's get right into it. So I studied psychology at UBC. I worked as a behavioral interventionist. I worked in after-school care and also as a preschool teacher.
For me, I actually lived in Japan for 1 year, and so doing that prepared me by having me study Japanese, and I also was able to work in Japan teaching English to people at an English conversation cafe, so that was a really good experience to have when I went into the interview. And also when I came back from Japan to my home in Canada, I taught English online via Skype to Japanese adults that are working and that wanted to improve their English. So that was also a really good thing to have. And also when I came back, I studied to become a teacher at the junior intermediate level, so that's grade 4 all the way to grade 10, which is the age group where English is taught most of the time in Japan.
Well, prior to the JET program, I'm a teacher by background, so I've been teaching for about 6 years, and because I've been teaching, I figured this would be a great opportunity to sort of pursue one of my goals, which has been to teach overseas. So pretty much taking my teaching skills, my travel experiences, and putting that together. And I think that's what helped me prepare to be in the JET program.
Stephen Hine, who was my third-year psychology professor at UBC, showed photos of his trip to Japan, and I was really inspired to come on the JET program. Also, my family is Japanese, and I really wanted to know what it's like to live in Japan. Although I'd been here before on vacation, it's very different to live in a country than it is to just to visit.
My main goal was I wanted to find a way to live and work in Japan. That's what I really wanted to do. So when I was in Japan, my host family and I were talking about ways that we could do that, and the best way, according to them, was to teach English, and they had heard of the JET program from other people that stayed in the house with them, and it was a really good way for people to enter Japan. It's like a nice foot in the doorway.
I've always wanted to come to Japan. There was contests where I entered, tried to apply. It was a Canada Poster Challenge. I didn't win the grand prize to do it, but I figured I'd want to try in the future. 6 years later, I had one of my kuyas, one of my senpais, who was in the JET program for 3 years, and he said, Rolly, you should try. And he told me his stories about being in Kyushu, and he said, like, this would be good for you. And when I heard his story, I decided, you know what, it's been one of my dreams, and hearing his story, his encouragement really reminded me, maybe I should try something new. So that's what inspired me to retry and go for this dream of mine.
I think having a clear goal of what you want to accomplish while in the JET program is really important. Having the mindset of exchanging your cultures with those of Japan is really important. I think having a background working with young children and having a high level of conversational Japanese really helped me, especially during the last part of the interview. They seemed really impressed with my Japanese ability. So try to improve your Japanese as much as possible before coming on the JET program.
When I wanted to apply, I went online and looked at the actual profile of what they are looking for the JET program, and I did everything that I could to kind of meet those expectations. So have a background in education, be familiar with Japanese customs, be familiar with Japanese, like the language itself, and besides that, everything was ready to go for me. I had like the right personality, the right kind of drive, because what you want to do is not only have the drive for teaching or just the drive for being in Japan, you really need to have both.
I think what helped is the fact that I'm a teacher by background. I do a lot of work with the community, a lot of volunteering, a lot of sharing and teaching, and because I love traveling, meeting new people, I really take the position of being an ambassador very seriously. I love hosting, I love connecting, mingling, and I think all these attributes really allows me to be a good person for the program.
Because my family is from Japan, I was fairly accustomed to the food, as my mom makes amazing Japanese food at home. I was also accustomed to the language as well, because in the household we speak Japanese. In fact, I loved when I first arrived here in Japan, arriving at the airport and hearing all the Japanese around me. It really felt kind of like going back home, rather than going to a foreign country.
It wasn't that much of a culture shock, actually, because I had lived in Japan prior to entering the JET program, so I kind of came in with certain expectations, and they were met. It's exactly as I thought I was going to be.
Being someone who has a community leader back home and being independent to now being someone who had to be totally dependent. I came with zero Japanese other than what I've learned from animes and my first crash courses with my friends. But the biggest culture shock was really having to depend a lot on people. Whenever I go to restaurants, I would just point and say, "Kore wa onegaishimasu." I still do that today. But I can do more things on my own. So I think the hardest culture shock was shifting and being humbling yourself to the point where you need to rely on others to really survive and to really make the most out of your experience. So being independent to more dependent so that you can be independent again.
So a typical daily routine for me is I wake up around 5:30, I eat breakfast and get ready by around 6:30. After that, I like to work out or stretch in the morning, and usually I leave at around 7:30 to 7:50. I go to 4 different elementary schools, and I commute differently based on which school I go to. So for one, I take the bus, another I bike, and the other 2 I walk. I usually arrive to school around 8 to 8:15. I'll have a quick meeting with the homeroom teachers or the JTE at the elementary school. Usually I'll have around 4 to 5 classes per day, and some days I'll have 6 classes, which means I have no free periods. During the breaks and lunch, I love to run around and play outside with the kids. Usually it's tag, dodgeball, or kickbase, which is California kickball. And at around 4 o'clock is when I finish, so that's when I go home.
Typically, what I would do is I would wake up in the morning at about 6:45, and I'm not a morning person, so I kind of tend to lay in bed, and then hop out, eat a quick breakfast, like a bread roll or something like that, wash, get dressed, ready to go, make sure that I have everything in my bag because you don't want to forget things back at home, and then I have a bicycle, so that's how I get to work. So I bike up to school. It takes about 20 minutes uphill, fun times. And when I get to school, the first thing that we do is we have a morning meeting with all the teachers, so that way you get to know what's happening in the school and what events are going on. So Japanese is really handy, or else you're kind of lost when those conversations are going on. And then I individually quickly meet with each of the teachers that I'm working with to make sure that we're on the same page for the activities that we're going to do and what grammar we're going to cover. Then we have class, we have lunch. After school, after all the lessons are done, that's when I prepare materials for the next day or the next few weeks.
Since arriving to Japan, I've really tried to grow laterally. So I usually wake up in the morning, hit snooze a few times, but it's earlier. With my goal of listening to motivational speeches, so I listen to a lot of people, Les Brown or Nightingale, and to kind of get my mind ready and prepped. So after listening to speeches, I get the hot water boiling to get my coffee, and to get hot water ready for some miso soup. There I usually cook breakfast, have rice for every meal. I love it. After having my breakfast, get ready for work, get all my things, walk towards the train station, and that's where I catch the bus. And when I get on the bus, I usually reflect things, plan for the day, and then I start smiling because of the Ichinenseis, the first years, and all the small elementary kids start coming on the bus, and it's just fun hearing them talk and wave at them and say hello. And then when I get to once they leave, I get closer to my school and I see the amazing scenery. I teach further out, and so once we get to the school, which has about less than 100 kids, I get off the bus and the kids are waving, saying good morning, hello. I give them high fives. I love high fives. And then the school day is normal morning meeting, teaching the junior high school kids in the morning. Afterwards, I join the kids for lunch, and then have classes at the different elementary schools. So I teach at 3 elementary schools. Once that's done, if I have time, I do some club activities with the kids, and then go home and usually have different activities, whether it's reading, dancing, training, exploring. So my evenings are usually spent with self-development.
Generally, my routine has been to go to the gym around 3 days a week. I also love to go running, biking, and also hiking. Japan is great for being outdoors and being in nature. On weekends, I love to travel and go to new places with my ALT friends. I'm also currently really interested in videography, so making YouTube videos.
I do club activities with the kids once in a while when I have time. So that's a good way to get involved in something that's fun after school and also lets you know the kids better. I also take Japanese classes once a week just to improve my level as much as possible.
A few different things. So again, every Monday, Wednesday, I do dance classes. On Tuesday, I take Japanese class. On the weekends, I try to get involved with the different festivals. So a great tool is social media. On Facebook, you have like Hello World, which tells you different sports events that happens. Just try to meet as many ALTs as possible because they'll share events. So I think you just need to, for me, I can't read Japanese, but I have many friends, so it's really reaching out, making bonds, and learning what are they doing in their communities, looking around Sendai, any city you're at, and just really trying to be immersed in the culture because there are most likely a festival happening every weekend. You just gotta find it.
What surprised me the most actually is how much time teachers spend on the phone. Because they are often in contact with the families on a daily basis. Teachers here are way more involved in a child's family life to make sure everything is going well outside of class hours.
When you hear about kids in Japan, you expect them to be very serious and dutiful when it comes to their studies. And so you kind of go in with that mindset that, oh, they're going to listen to everything you say and study really, really hard. But no, they are regular kids, just like in any other country. So they goof off. You have kids that play pranks on each other in class, that disrupt the class, and you're like, hey, wait a second, that's not what I thought it was going to be. But it makes it normal.
When we arrived, it's normally summer vacation in Canada. And as soon as we got to Sendai, we had to work the first day. But it was different because the kids were on summer vacation, but the staff room was full. And so the setup, it's kind of like an office, whereas back home, as a teacher, it's more isolating in the sense of you work in your classroom, and then during the summer vacation, you have vacation as well. But in Japan, you are in the staff room together with your colleagues planning. And I think that's one of the different aspects where you're actually planning with your colleagues in the same room, even if you're not doing the same thing, but you're with them during summer vacation. So I think that was one of the biggest differences, having your vacation to actually plan, but planning not by yourself, but in the presence of others.
These alphabet Pokemon cards. The best part about these is that you can use it for Karta, you can use it for memory game, and you can also use it as a trading card game. For the chapter, What Do You Want? You use this to trade cards. For example, what do you want? A card, please. So I love making cards and I love using them in the classroom.
PowerPoints that I've made with a lot of images, not so many words because a picture's worth 1,000 words anyways, and it just lets the kids have something to look at and understand better, because you can try to explain it as much as you want, but having an actual picture of whatever you're talking about there makes it so much easier for them to understand what you're trying to convey to them.
I love cards. So for example, these are the month cards. So one thing I would do with the kids is take these cards and put them on the walls and play different games, things like keyword games or chants. I love music, and I use a lot of movement and music in my classes. So for example, when they sing songs, I would have the cards like put on like the board randomly, and I'd have the kids sing the song. And as the kids sing the songs, the students have to go touch the cards, and so they sing and have that movement at the same time. So I would say cards. Definitely have a lot of cards, both with the words, vocabulary, and a lot of pictures.
That would be my USB, which is provided by your school because you can't use your own. I store all of my teaching materials on my USB, and I just plug it into my laptops at my different schools. I use it often to project materials onto the TVs that they have there, and also just to carry my teaching materials around.
Your imagination, if that makes any sense, because sometimes the teachers put you on the spot when they're trying to make like a scenario where you're trying to explain new grammar to the kids, and they say, oh, do you have something to say right now? And you're like, oh, okay. So if you're able to quickly think on your feet, come up with something that's fun, that's colorful, it's great for the kids. They remember it.
Gestures. I think for me, it's definitely gestures and rhythm, because again, I didn't have much Japanese, but the fact that I can gesture what I want, I think is a really helpful tool.
I think the experience on the JET program really exceeded my expectations, and it's mainly because of the people that I've met here. Meeting like-minded ALTs who love to explore and adventure has been great, and also building connections with Japanese people, whether it's coworkers or outside of work, it really makes me feel like I'm connected to Japan.
It's pretty similar to what I was expecting before coming on the JET program. We had a lot of seminars and stuff like that at the like amongst prior JETs that were in my city. So I got to hear a lot of their stories, how it was for them, what they did, and including people that were in my current city because it's different from city to city. But since I'm in Sendai, I talked to Sendai JETs, and they kind of told me straight up what the deal was going to be.
I didn't realize how much growth I could have. I expected growth, but I didn't expect to grow this much and to have time to explore other avenues. So I think the JET program has allowed me to grow laterally as a person. In some areas, I think I came with the mindset of being more of a teacher, since my background is teaching, and to realize that I'm more of an assistant teacher. That was a little bit of a change. And so I think the hardest expectation was, how do I continue to, switching my mindset from a homeroom teacher to being an assistant English teacher, but still finding ways to, bring all these experiences into my teaching. So I think that was probably different. But at the same time, it taught me how to do team teaching, which is something I didn't get to do back home. So in some ways, that part wasn't quite what I expected, because it gave me a better experience of learning how to team teach.
If you like to cook, sometimes your options are limited in Japan because your apartments don't come with ovens, and the supermarkets may not have all the ingredients that you need to make certain dishes. But learning new recipes and using local produce has allowed me to grow as a cook.
Sometimes you don't quite feel like you're in control because you're not a teacher, you're an assistant teacher. So when it comes to disciplining the kids and stuff like that, like, technically you're not supposed to discipline them, and you have to tell someone like, hey, someone's doing something right now. When you have teacher training, you're kind of usually used to doing something about it right away, so it's difficult to kind of pull the reins on that and to go get someone to do the job. Yeah, so that's a bit unfortunate, and sometimes I kind of tend to say something anyways. The danger with that is that the way things are handled in Japan and the way things are handled back home are not the same all the time, so that's why it's a bit of a dangerous zone to enter, and that's a bit unfortunate.
Definitely the best part about working in Japan is the relationships that you build with the kids and witnessing their success through their challenges. For example, the other day I had one of my kids who was doing high jump in PE, and they weren't able to get over the 115 centimeter bar. But with some encouragement, they were able to do it. They were able to get to 120 centimeters. And I gave him a high five, and I was super pumped and excited for him. So moments like that are what make the JET program worthwhile.
Being able to interact with the kids, I mean, that's the job. And at first it's a little daunting. It's not the same language, and you're like, oh, is this going to be okay? But the kids are great, and they're very open, friendly when you just talk to them, and then you get to know them, and it's great. It's the best part of the job by far. And I also really like the community of ALTs that we have outside of the job. We go out and go hiking, or go on a trip, or just have dinner, celebrate birthdays together. So it's kind of fun to have the Japanese life, but then have like little bits of non-Japanese life to kind of lean back on once in a while to make you feel at home.
The time to actually do self-growth and self-development I think that's one of the biggest pluses by being on the program where I have time to actually pursue these things. Second, the interactions with the communities, being with the students and teaching them about Canada, teaching them about like what the kids are doing back home, and working with with my colleagues and talking and learning about them and about Japan. I think the social interactions have been great, as well as the social interactions within the communities and the dance communities in particular for me, and the little onsen town that I teach at. So I think for me, it's that social interactions have been one of the best things that I've loved in tandem with the growth that I've had as an individual.
After the first JET orientation in Tokyo, I went exploring outside with some of my friends, and we went just around the corner, and I noticed all these bright lights on these buildings, and it was in Shinjuku, and that was when I really noticed that I was in Japan, and I realized that I had finally made it.
When it was New Year's, which is a really big celebration here in Japan, and I was able to bring my closest friends from work here all the way down to Tokyo so that they could meet my host family, and we all spent New Year's together. So it was like my old family in Japan and my new family in Japan all together at once. So it was really great, and we had a lot of fun, and I got to show them around my original home, so that was really cool.
I love hosting events, and I think for me it has to be the birthdays, from the surprise birthdays that we've hosted, and I think it's nice having that familiar aspect. So I think having birthday parties have been one of my favorites. The highlight recently has been my 30 to 30, and my friends making this amazing video, which really touched my heart, and receiving one from back home. So I'd say the best part was really seeing the love from both my family back home and the family here.
Don't pack towels that don't dry quickly. Just buy them here. I realized that I brought 2 towels over that I don't use anymore because they're too thick, and there's no dryers in our apartments here in Japan. So instead, we just hang our laundry outside. And in the wintertime, they don't dry properly at all. So definitely save space in your luggage and pack something else.
Clothes, definitely. It's better to kind of bring money with you so that way you can buy new clothes when you come to Japan, because the clothes here are made for the weather here. So yeah, I definitely had to kind of put stuff in storage and then buy a whole bunch of new things, so that was just wasted space for nothing.
The weather in Japan, it's beautiful, but the clothing, you need the right clothing to really maximize your experiences in the weather, whether it's the heat, whether it's the cold. So I would say bring less clothing, save more money to buy clothes here that match Japan's climate.
So your apartments here in Japan don't have central heating, so instead it gets really cold in the wintertime. So this yutampo only costs around 1,000 yen. It keeps you really warm, and all you have to do is fill it up with hot water. And yeah, it saves you on electricity bill, and I definitely recommend this.
Mensuyu is a cooking product. It's basically a blend of all the things that you need when you're cooking Japanese food. So that's soya sauce and vinegar, sugar, and all that. It's kind of like all mixed together in one bottle, so you don't have to buy all the individual things. You just have the one bottle and you pour it into your food. It flavors it. It's really nice.
Winters are cold as heck, and if it was not for kerosene, I probably would not have made it. There's a lot of tools you can use, like water bottles, but the kerosene it's affordable, it's cheap, yeah, and it keeps your place really warm. So kerosene. You need kerosene and, of course, your kerosene heaters.
One thing that always needs to be in my fridge is edamame, because you need that protein.
Cabbage. Sounds a little weird, I know, but cabbage is really cheap here in Japan. You get a lot of it for nothing, and it's a good thing to just add into whatever meal you're making. It makes it fuller, and it's good, healthy vegetables. And it doesn't taste too strong, so it blends well with whatever you're making.
Protein. I usually have pork, some sort of chicken. Vegetables are great, but if I have meat, I'm happy. At the same time, rice. If I have meat and rice, I'm a happy camper.
Definitely the Tottori sand dunes. It's so different than any other part of nature in Japan, and you wouldn't expect it to be here in the first place. And it's also right next to the ocean, and I love going to the beach, so it's definitely somewhere where I'd like to go to.
I haven't been to Kyushu yet, or Okinawa, so like the southern part of Japan. So I really want to go there, see the beach, and apparently it has really good food, really good onsen, all that good stuff that I like. So I'm really looking forward to going there one day.
The big one is Kyushu. The reason why is because my senpai told me stories of his experience teaching there, and that really made me inspired me to really try. At the same time, I want to see Fuji.
Last fall, I passed the JLPT N4. So one of my goals is to pass the N3 and eventually to pass the N2, just to keep my options open for potentially staying longer in Japan after the JET program. My conversational Japanese is quite good, but I never learned how to read and write kanji. So that's something that I definitely want to improve on, and will definitely improve the quality of your life while you're here in Japan.
Short term for now is to learn as much as I can on the job, how the system works, what materials are being used, what is being taught, how it's going to progress from here on in. And also I want to improve my Japanese as much as possible, taking the N2 in 2 weeks. So I'm a little nervous about that, but yeah, improving my Japanese is also a big one. And long term, my ultimate goal is to be able to live here. So long term would be able to find a steady job that lets me stay in Japan. Whether it be in education or administration or something like that, anything is fine.
Every month I try to give myself a goal, and this month the goal is improve my Japanese as well as improve my dancing ability. Japan has a really good dance scene, and so there's a lot of professional dancers that come and do workshops here. So I've been trying to learn from the guest dancers, but also from the community. So
I'm definitely way more time efficient since coming to Japan. I know that I have a limited amount of time here, so I try to use my time a lot more wisely.
I'm a lot more outgoing than how I used to be. Before I would tend to just lock myself up in my room and just let the time pass that way, but now I'm going out more, I'm meeting new people, I'm getting out of my shell, bursting that bubble, so that's how I've changed the most since I've come here.
My Japanese has improved, but I think the biggest thing has my sense of independence and realizing how far I can actually go. I feel like I'm becoming the person I'm meant to be, and I'm really understanding, what my gifts are, what my talents are, and that I'm able to interact with people. So I think the thing that's changed is I've seen a lot of inventing and reinventing of myself with the people around me.
If you're even considering applying, I suggest don't hesitate, just apply. This is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and if you're open-minded and looking for something new, you won't regret your decision.
What I do suggest is that you learn Japanese as quickly as possible, whether it's while you're still in your home country or as soon as you get to Japan, because when it comes to dealing with teachers, with students outside of school, your regular day life, when you go shopping, when you want to go on a trip or anything like that, no one really speaks English. So if you don't speak Japanese and they don't speak English, it's really difficult to try to get your point across and try to figure things out, make reservations and so on. Even just trying to explain to teachers what you want to teach, it becomes very, very difficult if you don't have Japanese. So I really, really suggest that you get on that right away, or else life is a bit difficult.
There are going to be things that you won't quite understand, and you're going to be tired trying to understand everything, but be open, because once you get it, it makes your life easier. Another thing, do your best to learn some Japanese. I came with zero, and I'm blessed that in Sendai, where there's a lot of ALTs that can speak Japanese and that have helped me. But I know there are some ALTs that go to cities where they're the only one. My experience, I know, would have been so different if it wasn't for the people around me, so learn some Japanese.
So hopefully this video helped you guys understand better how the JET program works. So, 皆さん、頑張ってください!
And again, if you have any questions, you can always follow me on Instagram at Rolly Adventures. Again, I post a lot of vlogs, a lot of reflections, and yeah, you'll see adventures with my West Side boys, so Akiyu, I got you!
And if you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, seize the day!